Hello, my name is Sheila Leitzinger, and I am the Director of Clinical Operations at Kezar Life Sciences. Kezar is a small biotech company located in San Francisco and is developing drugs for cancer and autoimmune diseases, such as lupus. I'm here today to present information on what a lupus nephritis clinical trial looks like, the importance of participating in clinical trials, and also to tell you about some of the exciting work that Kezar Life Sciences is currently doing. I'd like to thank the Lupus Foundation of America Lone Star chapter for inviting me to present today and to share this information with their network. Quite simply, clinical trials are research studies performed in people to find out if certain treatments can improve their health. They're carefully designed to figure out if the drugs being studied before are safe and effective, and with safety always being first and foremost. Before the treatments are tested in people, they are tested in the lab. This is also known as the preclinical stage. This testing is often done in mice, but sometimes it's done in other animals too. The stage is very important to determine a safe starting dose for when it's later tested in people. It's important to mention that sometimes lab research done in animals doesn't always predict exactly what happens later when it is tested in people. There are several phases of clinical trials that span over many years along the way before it is determined whether or not the study drug is both safe and effective in people. So the average cycle for the development of a drug is about 10 years from start to finish or to approval. It's important that it's done methodically, and oftentimes a study drug does not make it past phase 1 or phase 2 if there are safety concerns that happen along the way, or sometimes in later phases if the drug is found to not be very effective. Everyone who participates in a trial is a volunteer, and there's not always a meaningful gain for the individual, but there may be a gain for the greater good. The end goal is that if the drug is found to be effective and eventually approved, that it will be available to those who need it and can benefit from it. So the lab studies, which is the animal testing, generally takes about 3 to 6 years to complete. The clinical trials that follow, and those are the studies done in people, consist of 3 distinct phases. So phase 1 are considered the safety studies, the beginning safety studies. These are done in small numbers of people, generally about 20 to 80. Phase 2, safety, of course, is there, but this is also more of a focus on efficacy or signs that does the drug actually work. The phase 3 studies are the largest, and these are done in up to 3,000 patients, generally in diseases that affect larger populations. But since lupus is a more rare condition, we have to think carefully about how we design all phases of our studies, so we're able to get the most information from each phase along the way. Since lupus affects a smaller portion of the population, our studies may not be as large as, say, a study for high blood pressure or arthritis. As you go from phase 1 to phase 3, you learn along the way about how people may be responding to your drug. We meet regularly with the Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, and other regulatory agencies outside the US throughout the phases, with the ultimate end goal of approval or marketing authorization. This involves submitting lots of data along the way, including lab results and any side effects or adverse events which occurred in the studies, so that the agencies can make a clear and objective decision about whether or not to approve the drug. Post-marketing studies are done after a drug has been commercially approved. These are also known as phase 4 studies. Sometimes these are done in different patient populations. Sometimes it's to answer a specific question, like how long should you take it, or can you perhaps even take less of it? And we want to learn about any long-term effects as well, benefits or unexpected safety issues from a medication. And sometimes there are safety issues discovered after a drug has been approved, which in extreme cases can actually lead to withdrawal of the drug from the market. So biotech and pharmaceutical companies really need to do a better job at raising awareness of clinical trials. It's not very common for people with a disease to participate in a clinical trial. In fact, less than a third say they would be willing to participate at all. So our goal is to provide more information about what happens in a clinical trial so that people are better informed and may feel more comfortable about participating once they know more about what they can expect. So what are some of the basics of clinical trials? There's really a whole vocabulary around this. Some of the terms or abbreviations that you may have heard before are the FDA, which I mentioned earlier, and their role is really to make sure that drugs are safe, first and foremost, and then they need to make sure that the drugs work before any company can claim that they offer a benefit. The National Institute of Health, or the NIH, is a science-based organization that often supports research, and it's also a great resource for general information about clinical trials. ClinicalTrials.gov is a US-based website, but it includes information for most studies done around the world. You can go here to learn more by searching by your disease and learning which studies are enrolling and even where the clinical sites are located. The protocol is a very detailed instruction manual developed by drug companies, and it explains how to conduct a study. So the doctors, also known as investigators in research, must follow it to a T. It's kind of like a recipe from a cookbook. It's very strict, as we want every site participating in a study to measure things the exact same way. This is a great protection to those participating in the study, as it is the same set of instructions for everyone. And this way we can feel confident that the data being generated from the study are consistent and meaningful. Placebo, and this is also known as maybe a blank or a sugar pill. It's harmless, really has no benefit to you, but there are some studies where a person who has taken a placebo has actually reported an improvement in symptoms. Institutional review boards, or IRBs, these are groups of individuals with varying backgrounds who are formally tasked with the review of protocols, consent forms, study progress reports, to make sure that the rights and welfare of people participating in the studies are protected. IRBs are sometimes referred to as ethics committees. Every clinical trial is required to have one, and they must approve the study before it can even begin participating at the site. So these are some common myths about clinical trials that you may have heard before. I want to provide you with some facts that should hopefully debunk some of these claims. So the first myth is a clinical trial is for you only if you have no other treatment options. While this is true that some trials are meant for those who have no treatment options, such as a cancer trial, but others are designed to test ways to prevent recurrence of a disease. Some trials are done for healthy participants, like the recent COVID trials, or some are done in healthy volunteers to test ways to prevent the illness from starting in the first place, or to see how certain drugs react to one another in the body. So another myth is that clinical trials are only for sick people. But again, many trials are done in cancer patients who may already be sick, but others are meant to measure disease prevention. And therefore, these require that the participants are actually healthy. Another myth is that if you're receiving a placebo, you're actually not getting any treatment. Patients participating in a trial actually receive the standard of care, along with the option of a new potential treatment. So these studies often use a placebo or the sugar pill. However, they are still being treated for their condition, perhaps with chemotherapy. But then they may also get the potential new treatment as well. So why is participating in clinical trials important? The short answer is that there would be no new medicines or therapies if studies did not occur. Your participation is always voluntary, and you'll have a long discussion with your doctor or the research investigator before you agree to participate in the study or even sign an informed consent. And that's the document that carefully explains all the study details. Participation in a study can sometimes be a burden. It takes your time, and you will likely require more tests and visits to your doctor than normal. But companies like Kezar need to check your progress and make sure your blood tests are okay and that you're not experiencing bad side effects. This needs to be frequently monitored along the way. So why is diversity important in clinical trials? We want the people to be representative of those affected by the disease, such as studying the right age range of those most impacted by the disease. Ethnic and racial diversity is also important, as different diseases affect different genetic backgrounds, and certain diseases may impact other people more than others. There's certain blood pressure medications, for instance, that are actually less effective in African Americans than other races. So it's important to better understand why. The lupus affects Black and Hispanic women more. The prognosis is often worse. Minority women generally develop lupus at a younger age. They have more severe complications and higher mortality rates. So now I'm going to talk a bit about lupus and then explain some of the exciting work that Kezar is doing in this space. So systemic lupus erythematosus, or SLE, is a chronic relapsing and remitting autoimmune disorder. It comes and goes, has manifestations across multiple organs in the body, can be unpredictable, and sometimes stress can bring on flares. This makes studying lupus very challenging, as every patient is a bit different. Most signs and symptoms of SLE are nonspecific and actually mimic those of other diseases. Clinicians often refer to SLE as the cruel mystery or great imitator, as it often looks like other diseases. Somehow your body's immune system has decided that parts of your body are foreign, so your own immune system starts attacking your organ systems. Kezar is trying to target or bring down this attack signal. Why is lupus nephritis so serious? It can occur without many other symptoms of lupus. So people may not know that their kidneys are actually being attacked. Loss of protein in the urine can have serious complications, as we need a certain amount of protein in our body to function. So if we lose it through our kidneys, it can have negative consequences. And it can also damage the kidneys, where some patients may later require dialysis or even a kidney transplant. SLE and LN impose a substantial disease burden. This is really to everyone, those living with it, those taking care of those living with it, doctors, and even the payer system. So as a company, we look at all these factors, and we believe there is an opportunity to improve upon the existing therapies. If you're going to design a better therapy, it's important the LN is treated, but also the other manifestations too, preferably with one drug instead of having to take many. We certainly want people to feel healthy a great deal of the time. For lupus nephritis, we want to decrease the proteinuria, and we want to improve quality of life, as we don't want the treatment to be worse than the condition itself. So these are some of the treatment options for SLE and LN. Antimalarials, corticosteroids, and biologics are the three main classes of medications. But as you're already likely aware, they have some unpleasant side effects, and in some cases, severe. The drug that Kezar is studying is known as Kezar 616 for now, is unique, and it does not fall into any of these categories. So I'll explain a little bit more about Kezar 616 in just a little bit. These are the common immunosuppressants used for SLE and LN. Immunosuppressants are essentially therapies that turn down your immune system so that it will stop attacking the body. So as mentioned from previous slides, there's clearly a lot of room for improvement for the treatment of lupus. There's currently no cure for it, and the existing treatment options have unpleasant and sometimes even serious side effects. So these are some of the investigational drugs for SLE and LN. And as you can see, Kezar is not the only one working on lupus. There's several other companies studying right now. And it's important that you weigh out the pros and cons of each one and choose the one that you feel most comfortable with. So what exactly is Kezar 616? It helps to better understand the machinery in our immune cells called the immunoproteasomes. In healthy situations, the immune system protects the body against unwanted foreign substances, but sometimes the immune system attacks the body's own cells. And this can lead to inflammation and autoimmune disorders such as lupus. The immunoproteasomes play an important part of the machinery of our cells, but only the cells of our immune system. So if we think of our immune system as an orchestra, the immunoproteasome acts like a conductor to help orchestrate all the instruments of the immune system and protect the body from foreign substances. In autoimmune diseases, immune cells in that orchestra start playing too loudly. The KZR616 has the potential to bring down the volume of the immune system to a harmonious level. KZR616 is the first selective immunoproteasome inhibitor that is currently in clinical trials for severe autoimmune diseases such as lupus, but we're also studying it in polymyositis and dermatomyositis. Since the immunoproteasomes are expressed only on cells of the immune system, inhibiting the immunoproteasome with KZR616 may help turn down the volume of an overactive immune response. So if you'd like to learn more about this, we actually have a video on how it may work on our website at KezarLifeSciences.com. The KZR616 lupus study Kezar is sponsoring is called the Mission Study. The Mission Phase 2 study is currently enrolling. You need to have a diagnosis of class 3 or 4 lupus nephritis and an active demonstration of loss of protein in your urine to be eligible. You can consult with a local investigator for more information about eligibility, but it is an open label study, so everyone gets drug, KZR616, no placebo, and you will be on the study for up to 6 months. But here's some additional information and resources. There are actually 5 clinical trial site locations in Texas. You can visit clintrials.gov or email us directly at clinicaltrials@kezarbio.com for more information about how you can participate. Thank you for your time today and for allowing me to tell you more about Kezar and how you can participate in clinical trials.